Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to TGA Podcast episode 16. Kanan here with my co-host, Greg Bessie.
100%.
I wasn't here for this episode. I was out gallivanting in the northern suburbs of Cape Town. Always good times in the north.
What happened, Kanan? You disappeared.
Hey, listen, let me tell you, if any of our listeners watch Game of Thrones, the northern suburbs of Cape Town is like beyond the wall in Game of Thrones. It's like the north. It's the wildlands.
No, is it? You disappeared on a Saturday.
On Friday.
No, on a Saturday.
Came home
you
Monday
showed up
night.
on Monday. Yeah.
But I had good times, eh? But great. Tell me about the guest you had this week. You're quite excited to have this guy on, eh?
Man. Scott is a great guy. He owns a business or a website called ScottCheapFlights.com, where he helps people to find very cheap flights. So he can save you up to like 50 to 70% on flights. The way it started.
That's
like
a big deal, hey, because it's the biggest expenditure if you're flying.
100%, bro.
Accommodation.
Look, he flew to Milan from the States for $130 round trip.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, so he's into that hiking flight shit and all that. So the way it started was he was working as a journalist in Washington D.C. and Mexico, and then he was flying a lot. Then he had to find a way to hack flights, find the cheaper ones, and he wrote a book on how to do it. And then he created an email list to help his friends to find cheap flights. More like you say, when I find a cheaper one, I'm just gonna email everyone.
Yeah.
Then he got featured on Business Insider for doing that, and then his email list for one night blew up, and he was like, how do I handle this? And the rest is history. Now it's a big business.
And he's still called Scott Cheap Flight.
Yeah, exactly.
I like the fact it's original.
Yeah, and now he has employees. I think, I don't know the exact number, but it's somewhere in the podcast.
And they all just search the net looking for these cheap flights.
His employees, he has never seen any of them.
Yeah.
They're all remote.
Fair play.
How awesome that, right?
That is awesome.
Yeah, that's 100%.
That's 21st century.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
without further ado, episode 16.
Yeah,
Mr.
exactly.
Scott.
Mr. Scott, yeah, and just remember to subscribe on the website, however you're listening to it. If you're listening on iTunes, subscribe on iTunes, or if you're listening from the SoundCloud, just follow on SoundCloud, or from the website, do the same on Stitcher Radio. And also you can download this podcast and listen to it on your own time. That's the good thing about it. You just go to the website, gregjavesi.com. On each episode, there's a download link below the player. And if you don't subscribe, what does that make?
You believe the Earth is flat.
And also, you don't believe we went to the moon.
Don't want to be in that category.
You don't want to be in the category.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys. Enjoy the episode with Scott.
Yeah, well, let's see. I'm in Colorado right now, so it's just about noon over here. Hope it's not too late for you.
No, it's 100% perfect. It's like 8 p.m. now, so it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Excellent.
So what is the plan for you besides working and doing the podcast today?
Let's see. I'm running Scott's Cheap Flights, and plan for me is just keep on doing that. We're in the process of expanding right now. So a couple months ago, we hired someone to basically run the same list, but out in Australia. And then starting in a few weeks, we'll have someone doing it in Europe as well. Right now, I'm covering United States and Canada. And other than that, I'll tell you, it's more than full time just running your own business. So it's keeping me pretty busy.
100%. So for the people listening, just give us a throwback exactly how Scott Flights got to be what it is today, and what exactly is it?
Yeah, so Scott's Cheap Flights is a subscription-based email list, and the way it works is I spend basically all day, every day, just searching for cheap flights because that's my weird obsession in life. We all have things we're into. Some people really like watching Kim Kardashian Snapchats, and some people really like following baseball and whatnot. And I just love searching for cheap flights. And so the way that Scott's Cheap Flights works is when I find a really good cheap flight, not ones that save you 50 or $100, but ones that save you like 300 or $400, then I send them out to the email list. And the way it started was when, about 3 years ago, I found the best deal that I've ever had in my life from New York City to Milan in Italy for $130 round trip. It's an amazing price, and I had zero interest in visiting Milan before I saw that price. And then as soon as I was like, yes, I will go to Milan for $130 round trip. So it was great. I went, had a fantastic trip, like went skiing in the Alps and went to like Cinque Terre, all these amazing places. And then when I got back, all my friends were like, oh, Scott, can you let me know next time a great deal like this pops up so I can jump on it? And so rather than trying to remember, oh, I need to tell, John, and I need to tell George, and I need to tell Sally, like, I just decided to create this email list where I could just let everybody know at once. And so for years, Scott's Cheap Flights was just a personal email list I ran for my friends. But then it's grown slowly over time, and now it's a business I run. It's available. It's a freemium model, so you can sign up either to get deals for free, or you can pay a little bit, a few bucks a month or so, and to get access to all the deals. Whereas free members get a third of them. Premium members also get like the deals beforehand. They get a credit card consultation, no ads, stuff like that. But yeah, it's been a blast. I'm still to this day like kind of shocked that I'm able to do this for a living. But I love it. I love it. It's great, and I love being able to help people find these cheap flights. It's very gratifying when you get emails from folks that say, oh, I didn't think I would ever be able to afford a honeymoon, but that deal you sent out, we just booked it. Like it. Yeah, it's really humbling and gratifying to hear.
Awesome, man. Actually, to the people listening, it's like if you go on Scott's website, you will see all these stories about couples and families that you help save money through using your website. And you have saved subscriber savings about 1.2 million savings.
Yeah, and we actually need to update that. I think it's quite a bit higher now. But yeah, it's again incredibly gratifying to hear just the stories that you get from people who are in long distance relationships, people who are honeymooners, people who have family in other countries, people who just want to travel and see other places that all thought that look, flights are $1,000 round trip, and I can't afford that. I would love to be able to go, I just can't afford it. And so when then I'm able to get them a deal from New York to Paris for $380 round trip, they're like, oh my God, I can actually afford that. It's not a fantasy anymore. It's not, oh, I'll go there someday. It's like, wow, I could go there next month if I wanted to. And so that again, it's just such a gratifying thing to hear from the folks who, as cliche as it sounds, were able to turn their dreams into a reality.
Awesome. Yeah. So what happens? What are the dynamics that leads to a cheap flight? Actually, like how does that just happen that you have a flight that is 70% less than you would pay normally, or 50% off, or something like that?
Yeah. So okay, a few things. I start out by saying that the overall cost of airfare in 2016 is actually quite a bit lower than it's been in recent years. It's at a low point now for certainly the last 4 or 5 years. So, at least when adjusting for inflation. And one of the reasons, there are a few reasons for that. One is that the cost of oil is down. Two is that the overall global economy has been, flagging, has been pretty middling. But one of the most important things is that there's been a number of cheap budget carriers that have popped up for international flights. So these new ones like Norwegian Air, like WOW Air, a lot of new Chinese airlines. And so what those are doing is that they're able to sell international flights. You can fly now from LA to Copenhagen, for instance, for about $300 round trip, which 2 years ago, that would have been a total pipe dream. It would have been, $800 round trip. And so because Norwegian is able to offer these $300 round trip flights, that's putting downward pressure on the prices of other airlines, of United and American and other Lufthansa and other carriers. So in the overall context of cheaper flights in general, there are a number of reasons why you'll see like really cheap flights. These $130 to Milan ones, stuff like that. Those ones are what I call a mistake fare. Now, mistake fare is airline sells a ticket at a price it did not mean to sell it at. As there's no doubt in my mind that United Airlines did not mean to sell me that ticket from New York to Milan for $130 round trip. They're losing a lot of money on that. So when these mistake fares that pop up, they're not common, but they're not super rare either. They pop up from time to time, whether because of human error, because of IT problems between airlines. Sometimes it's just what's called a fat finger discount. Somebody means to type in $1,200 and accidentally types in $120. Or even currency conversion a lot of times can lead to mistake fares. Trying to convert it from US dollars to Danish krona can sometimes result in like super cheap flights. There are a number of different reasons why those mistake fares pop up. And usually when they pop up, they don't last for very long. Sometimes it's as little as like 3 or 4 hours. And so that's why I think Scott's cheap flights can be valuable. And a big reason why I started this service in the first place, because I figured people need to know about these before they disappear. If $130 flights to Europe are only going to be around for 4 hours, you better find out about it in that 4-hour window. Otherwise, you're going to miss out. I think between the overall flights being less expensive in 2016 and the proliferation of mistake fares, I think that's most of the explanation of why you'll see cheap flights nowadays and why they tend to pop up. It's been a little bit surprising that even today, I don't think there's been a better time in the history of aviation for finding cheap flights than there is today. I've been, even in the couple years that I've run this email list, I've been shocked at the number of cheap flights that have popped up, nowadays. And so I hope it continues, but you never know. Tomorrow, like if more airlines start to merge, the price of oil goes up. If the global economy improves, any number of these factors could start to push airline fares a little bit higher.
Oh, incredible story, man. So at this point now, do any of these guys come to you and just tell you, we have these flights at the lower rates? Could you just put them on your site and stuff?
Not really. A couple of the airlines have been, can we add you to our mailing list when we have a sale? I'm like, okay, sure, great, I'll take a look at it. But with rare exception, most of the times when the airlines do a sale, it's not actually that good of a price. And so what I want to distinguish here is between an advertised sale and an unadvertised sale. Advertised sales usually don't have that great of prices. And the reason why is that they know if they advertise it, they put it up on their social media, they put it up on websites, it hits travel blogs and whatnot. A ton of people are going to see that. And so they don't want to sell their like cheapest fares at that price. So, rather than selling it for, $450 to Milan, they'll sell it for like $650. That having been said, airlines also run what's called unadvertised sales, where just overnight, whether because of competition from another airline or whatever reason, they'll lower the price on flights, let's just say from New York to Paris, yesterday the flights were $550 and today it's 450. That's what's called, but they don't announce it or anything. It's not this like scheduled sale. They're not trying to promote it. Those are an unadvertised sale, and usually those are the ones that I'm most interested in, because those ones I think tend to have better prices, because they're not hyping it up to everyone. They're not worried about it like selling too many tickets at that price. They might only want to sell like, let's say 1,000 tickets at that price. And so they figure just by word of mouth, it'll get the word out and they'll get sold. Whereas if they actually advertise it themselves, there might be a lot more interested in it, and they could end up losing some money from that sale. So usually I'm actually mostly interested in the unadvertised sales rather than ones that the airlines are pitching to me.
Oh, incredible. So what were you doing before all this happened? Who was Scott back then?
Oh, man. So I was actually a journalist for a number of years. I worked as a journalist in Washington, D.C. I was a political journalist. And that kind of got me a little bit in a very convoluted way, led to where I am today. So I was a political journalist and I traveled a lot for work. And so I got really into frequent flyer miles, and making sure I'm getting the most value from those, making sure I'm earning them well and everything. And so I realized what a murky world that is. It's really hard. Airlines make it very difficult to try to figure out like how to generate miles, how to use your miles, stuff like that. So I ended up writing just a short ebook, explaining how miles work, how to get the best value out of them, how to generate a ton of them, stuff like that. Over a number of years, that I ended up writing a second book on how to find cheap flights. I just sort of got very good at this type of thing. I ended up moving down to Mexico and living down there for a little while, and working as a freelance journalist, but still doing some of this travel writing stuff on the side. And then over time, I ended up just kind of slowly transitioning away from journalism and to this travels type of stuff. The list kept growing larger and larger. I figured, okay, it's worth it to me to start to focus on this on more of a full-time manner. And that leads to where I am today.
Oh, incredible. And in your childhood, you ever liked aviation or flights or stuff like that before?
Yeah, I grew up traveling quite a bit, really liked it and had a lot of fun. But I didn't travel quite as much as I did. We took a couple trips, mostly around the U.S., mostly driving and whatnot. But I think it was after college that I really started to realize, like, wow, there's a big world out there. B, I want to see it all, but I'm never going to be like super rich. So I need to figure out a way to do this without, spending my life savings on it. And so with those two things in mind, I had to figure out like, how can I see the world without spending all my money? And so that led to both getting really into frequent flyer miles and figuring out, when I'm purchasing flights, how can I make sure that I'm getting the best possible price for it? So I think it was both born out of like personal experience, personal love of travel, and from a desire to like get the best value of things. Nobody wants to be a sucker. Nobody wants to like. There's no worse feeling than feeling like you're a mark. Like you paid a higher price than somebody else for the exact same thing. That's just nobody likes feeling that way, and so. Trying to figure out like how to beat the airlines at their own game was just kind of a fun hobby that over time turned into a job.
Cool. So let's move back 5 years, for example. Like, what did you want it to become? Or, since you was younger, or just like 5 years before all this, what were you trying to do?
I think 5 years ago, I would have, and moving forward, I would have imagined that I'd stay in political journalism and writing. I think that still may be the future. Still for me, I'm still a young guy. I'm only 29 years old. I feel like most of my life still ahead of me. But I feel like I've also lived enough to know like not not to live my life too rigidly either, and to be able to roll with the punches. So when this opportunity sprung up, going with it, and realizing, wow, there's a possible business here, and building that rather than staying so narrowly focused on political journalism, I think has been a real lucky break for me. But that having been said, next year, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, who knows what might pop up? Who knows, who I'll meet, or what other opportunities might arise. And not to get too philosophical, but I feel like I, much more than in the past, am now like much more willing to just say, hey, life happens. It's hard to predict it too much, and it's hard to plan for too much. You just gotta roll with it sometimes, and take the opportunities when they rise up.
All right, incredible, bro. So as I was reading through your story on Reddit, there's a point where my favorite part was when I think you had your 15 minutes of fame, as you explained it, and then you just suddenly your email list blew up, and you had to pay for all these hosting fees and stuff. Could you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah. So this is about, man, it's only a year and a half ago. It's kind of crazy how quickly things have gone.
Oh yeah.
But so a year and a half ago, I was living in Mexico, and I was just getting ready to leave and go on a round the world trip with my then girlfriend, now fiance. We had a bunch of frequent flyer miles. She had 2 months off of work. I worked as a freelancer, so I could be anywhere. So we kind of devised this round the world trip. We traveled to like 13 countries over 2 months, like 20,000 miles. And we did it all for free using frequent flyer miles. And so as luck would have it, a journalist from Business Insider ended up getting wind of the story and saying, "Oh, that sounds like an interesting article. Can I interview you?" And so, I switched roles, and rather than being the person doing the interview, I was the person being interviewed. And this article went up right as we left for our trip, and ended up just going completely viral. 350, 400,000 views. And so overnight, the email list went from having about 300 people on it to about 5,000. And so, this is like mind blowing. Like, wow, what do I do now? But the most immediate problem, because you have to recall that at this time, this was just an email list that I every once in a while would find a good fare and send it out to my friends. Yeah. It was just friends on there, basically just people I knew. And so overnight, all of a sudden, 20 times the number of people were there, and they were all like strangers. And so the most immediate problem was all of a sudden, I'd been doing it on MailChimp, and they let you have a free list, if you're under, say, 1,000 people or so.
Yeah.
They let you do it for free, but I had 5,000 people, and now all of a sudden I was going to have to start paying hosting costs for that. And it wasn't a ton. We're talking, $50-$60 a month or so. But I didn't really want to pay $60 a month for the privilege of emailing my friends. So I started to figure out, okay, how can I do something with this list just to recoup my costs, just to make sure that I'm at least breaking even. Like, I'm happy to keep doing this. I just didn't want to be paying for the privilege of emailing people deals. And so, bounced around a couple ideas. Should I put in ads? Should I just have it be all paid for? And I ended up going with this freemium model where folks have to, you can be either on the free list or the premium list. I started out the premium list just saying, just $2 a month. That's what it costs to be on the free list. I didn't even know if I would get the 30 people I would need to recoup my costs at that point. I had no idea. Frankly, I was pretty skeptical I'd be able to find 30 people who would pay $2 a month, as little as that is. And so I set it super low with low expectations. And, it ended up like I was surprised. You know, I don't even remember how many in the first month. Maybe like 100 people in the first month or something, but enough to show me that like, huh, there's some interest here. Like I recouped my costs, made a couple bucks, you know, some beer money. Like maybe there is something to this. And then you know the next month it grew a little bit bigger, and then little by little I realized like, you know, it started to become big enough that I was like, wow, this needs to actually like become a legitimate business rather than just something I sort of did in my free time. And so after a few months, I ended up bringing on a business partner. A few months after that, brought on a third person to help with like customer service. Then brought on someone to help run the Australia list. Now someone new to run the Europe list. So it's been expanding, but you know, this is all in the course of the last like 16 months or so. So it's been, for someone like myself who isn't a businessman, doesn't have like a business background, it's been kind of a whirlwind, and definitely a like something I wasn't prepared for. But it's been a lot of fun just trying to figure it all out as I go along.
Wow. So within that period, like when did you actually had to quit your job and concentrate on your website entirely?
So I was still doing some freelance journalism up through about February. So it's only been about 8 months that I've been doing this, you know, full time, like focusing all my efforts on this. By February, like most of my time had been spent on this, but yeah, at that point, you know, just looking at the numbers and looking at everything, it made too much sense to like. It didn't make any sense anymore to keep trying to split time doing both journalism and running this business. I realized I really need I owe it to this business and to the number of subscribers I had at that point to make sure that I'm like giving as much of my time and effort as I can.
Right. You know, your story is pretty similar to the one of Derek Sivers. I don't know if you know anything about that guy.
Tell me more.
He founded CD Baby. He was a musician. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and then he was trying to find a way to sell his music because he couldn't get a deal from a record company whatsoever. And then he created a way where, you know, you can arrange a CD for you and get it delivered just for his own music. And then some of the guys just saw that and they're like, oh, wow, that's an incredible way to do it. Another friend came through. They're like, oh, could you do that for me? I heard from a friend of mine that you're doing this distribution of music. And then the next guy came and too late, it became a big company. And then he sold it for $22 million. I think Apple kind of approached him once to acquire it also.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's so funny how many businesses are just basically happen by accident. You know, like I feel like there's a notion that, oh, you know, you need, like your business should be exactly like you need to come up with a brilliant idea for the business and execute it perfectly.
A business
and that
plan.
happens and that happens sometimes, but a lot of times like the best businesses are side products of your original idea. I think it was the same thing with Slack. It's one of the like largest, fastest growing tech companies in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
And it started out just as like a chat platform for some people who are trying to make a video game. That, you know, it's just a chat platform that they kind of created themselves as a way to like a productivity tool for themselves. And then over time they realized like this is the actual product. You know, the video game nobody cares about. Like the chat product is what's working. And so I think recognizing those opportunities a lot of times, like I did, you know, realizing like, wow, I've got, you know, thousands of people on this email list. I have an opportunity here, even if I never set out to create Scott's Cheap Flights. You know, I never set out to make, like, this was never my dream per se. It wasn't a business idea I had. It's just like all of a sudden I realized I had thousands of people who are interested in this. I tested it a little bit, saw like, yes, there is a willingness to pay for this type of thing. And then just, you know, over time started to realize like, yes, you know, this is something that I can go ahead and turn into a real business and turn it into what it's become today.
Right. So did you ever thought before of having something like this before? I mean, maybe you couldn't be specific at first, but did you ever see yourself creating something or running your own online business?
Not really. Like again, because I don't have a business background, I never studied it in school. I never like had dreams of being an entrepreneur. I had more of a writing background, and so that's why like I wrote the two ebooks on frequent flyer miles and finding cheap flights. And so it, it was just something that because this email has started to get larger and larger, I realized like I can't just keep saying no to this. I have an opportunity here, and I have to see it through. Like I would be kicking myself if I didn't. And so it's been a real learning process, trying to figure all of this as I go along. I didn't know anything about processing payments or hiring people or building a website or customer satisfaction or email open rates this has all been a learning process for me, but it's been a lot of fun because like I think it's more if you come into it with a curiosity and an eagerness to learn, then it's a lot more interesting and exciting than if this didn't just feel like some master plan that I'm trying to execute for a long time. It's more like, oh wow, this is kind of a cool new adventure, and I'm trying to
right.
figure it out and see it through.
Yeah. I think in that sense, then it's easier. You're just having fun, having no expectations. Sometimes it's really good.
Yeah, the expectations are super low. If it just turned out tomorrow that everyone just decided to unsubscribe in mass, then I'd be like, all right, that was fun.
Yeah.
I got a good time doing it, and now I'll figure out the next thing.
Right. So after all that, then to this point where it's actually working, it's established. What changed then in your life personally?
Mm. Um, Ooh, that's a great question. So, I mean, I was working as a freelancer before this. So, in that sense, I don't I'm still like get to work from home, still get to have a super flexible schedule, get to travel when I want and whatnot, which is all great. The downside of all that is because I can work anywhere at any time. I can also work anywhere at any time. So like I was in Japan last week and, still having to like send out emails and deal with, customers and employees and stuff like that, which, it's a blessing and a curse. How else has my lifestyle changed? Um, I I feel like I have a lot more I feel like a lot greater sense of responsibility now, but in two ways, both to employees, both to like folks who I pay,
Yeah.
and are relying on me to live their lives, and B to customers who are want cheap flights and have high expectations of them, and so like I'll literally I'll let's say I'll be I don't know out camping for 2 days and I won't have email access. Like I'll go 48 hours without sending a deal, and I'll get a bunch of emails from folks like, "Hey, just wanted to see if you're okay, and like if you're still sending out deals." Like I hadn't received any in a couple days, um, and so like there's definitely a much greater sense of pressure and responsibility now than when I was, just a journalist and working. I felt like the pressure was mostly self-induced at that point, just making sure like I'm doing a good job because I want to do a good job rather than having people, I think, rely on me specifically.
Oh yeah, I can imagine, bro.
Yeah.
And now in your personal life, who do you live with? Are you surrounded by you and your company only, or it's just you live with someone else?
So I live with my fiance and our puppy, our cat and our puppy. But the interesting thing about Scott's Cheap Flights is there are five of us now on the team, and we've never actually met each other. Um, we all live in on different continents.
Right.
Um, so I live, or I guess different countries at least. So I live in Colorado, in the U.S. Um, Cassandra lives in Canada. Brian is an American living in Thailand. Nicole is in Australia, and then our newest employee, Katie, is in Scotland. And so, yeah, again, nice thing about the business, it's very remote. People know their jobs and responsibilities and don't have like need someone like staring over their shoulder to make sure that they're doing their work. But at the same time, it makes it tough to do, like we're trying to schedule a team meeting, for instance, and trying to schedule a team meeting for folks in the U.S., Scotland, Thailand, and Australia to pick one time that works for everybody is just a nightmare.
100%.
So, so that's actually been definitely an interesting part of the job, is just having, a team built on all remote, all people working remotely. Not something that I've done before, but definitely a lot of advantages to it.
Right. So now you have a team and you're growing, definitely. And my question would be, who is your ideal leader? Like, who do you look up to kind of be like them in terms of leadership, or to be an employer in a way?
That is a great question. There's nothing that really like prepared me, I think, for what it was like to be a boss, and partly because I didn't, this all just kind of happened so suddenly and unexpectedly that I didn't like realize that I was about to be, a boss. I wouldn't say I have a kind of leadership mentor or role model per se, and that's probably my own shortcoming of not looking for one. But what I would say is that this is semi-related. One of the things I think that I didn't realize coming in is there had been other people and other companies and whatnot that had done cheap flight email lists or cheap flight services, fairly similar to this in the past, or even doing it currently. And so I think there was a lot of people who come up with an idea for a job, a business, a service of some kind, and the first thing you do is market research. You look, are there other people doing this? And they'll find, one person doing it, two people doing it, something, and then they'll just be like, okay, it's already being done. And one of the things that I think I realized from this job is like, that's not a reason not to do it. You can always do it better than them. Either you're actually doing the service better, you're doing the marketing better, you have a better audience, you have a better story. Like, there's any number of reasons why there's room for more competitors. And I think the biggest reason, if you start out just from the offset, is if you have to research whether or not there's someone already in this space, it probably already tells you that most people, if you don't know if there's competitors in the space, it probably means that other people don't know if there's competitors in the space, which means that there's room for more people to provide this service. Most people, for instance, with my business, aren't necessarily choosing between like, oh, I want to be on Scott's Cheap Flights, or like choosing from a competitor. They're choosing, do I want to be on Scott's Cheap Flights, or do I not want to be on Scott's Cheap Flights? It's just a binary choice, almost like just a referendum. And this is something that I try to explain to folks when they have a new idea. It's just like, if you think there's a market for this and you think you can do it well, that's enough of a reason to do it. Just because there's competition and other people doing it, that's not a good enough reason. Like, that there's still room for you to do this. And I think that's one thing that I would was a bit surprised about. I wouldn't have thought of this 16 months ago, when I was starting out the business. But I'm really glad that I didn't let it dissuade me from starting Scott's Cheap Flights.
Right. So just to take you back a little bit, what magazine were you featured in that boosted your...
Mm-hmm. It was Business Insider.
Okay, Business Insider.
Yeah, businessinsider.com.
Oh, right. And one other thing that I would want to ask would be, do you have kind of a support system, or someone or some people who tell you when you fuck up sometimes?
I'd hope that my the folks I work with would tell me when I fuck up, and my business partner and I, we don't always see eye to eye on everything, but I think we do a pretty good job of like um, sort of meeting in the middle on stuff. When we don't see eye to eye about big business strategies. Um, I'd like to think that we're fairly collaborative, that I'm not ruling with like an iron fist or anything. Um, I think it would I'll be totally frank. I don't really have a mentor support system like that beyond just talking to friends in general and whatnot. But I think it could like just thinking about the challenges and stuff that we face. Like I think if I had the opportunity of someone, if I did have a mentor, someone that I could come to with these larger questions, it probably would be helpful for someone like me who never really anticipated being an entrepreneur or businessman, to have something like that that I could come to with these questions. Because, like I said, I'm just figuring it all out as I go along. You know, Google's been my best friend trying to figure out these sorts, questions to answer like this. And there are a lot of Reddit forums, Reddit r/entrepreneur and stuff like that it's helpful to read through and see other people's experiences. But I haven't really had like a singular figure, who served as a mentor or anything like that. And so I guess the upshot is, if there are folks listening who want to be an entrepreneur or want to do business but don't have a mentor, someone looking after them, like that doesn't mean that you can't still do it. I've been able to get by just fine and have success without that thus far. And that you still can succeed just fine without it.
Right. And do you have any highlight stories from some of your subscribers that you can always remember from right away?
Oh man, I'll tell you. Honestly, the biggest like highlight story for me is seeing the photos. So we do a hashtag on Instagram for Scott's Cheap Flights, and so when I'm like every once in a while, I'll just get on there and I'll click through and see what's happening on that hashtag, and it's so cool to see like all these people who have taken who are in France or in Copenhagen or wherever, posting these photos from places and feeling like, wow, I helped make that possible. Like I'm looking right now, I'm seeing a photo from Madrid, there's one from Prague, there's another one from like Thailand. It's again incredibly gratifying to feel like, man, you are helping people travel the world. Like it starts like I've always loved going places and seeing the world, and helping people do that who didn't think they would be able to otherwise is really, really gratifying. And and so especially being able to see the photos is really fun.
Right. So there's a huge number of travelers and from people around the world on the podcast, and for those type of people, finding a job of this model of where it has no specific place or time to be is ideal. So for someone who runs that kind of business, what type of traits are you looking into someone to hire them?
It's a good question. So it's actually been an interesting process trying to hire folks to help out with Scott's Cheap Flights. Mostly hiring people to search for cheap flights and email them out. And the reason why it's been tough is it's not something that is direct. The skills are directly applicable in other jobs. So like, I can't just ask for resumes and expect to see a ton of people who have had jobs in the past searching for cheap flights. It's not really a career track per se or anything. And so I'm forced to, look for other types of skills. So, having someone who's really tech savvy is a really important sign to me, both because, it's an online based business service. And so I need them to be able to be really proficient with their tech skills, but also because I feel like it's an indication that they're a quick learner, and that's something that's really important. I think honestly for any job that it's there are very few jobs and employees that are going to be able to come in and hit the ground running, that are going to know everything that they need to do for that job. And so having someone who you can tell right away is really quick at picking things up and learning and able to do it themselves, as quick as possible, I think is a really positive sign. Other than that, like I'll give a couple tests, like have you search, send me the best 5 cheap flights you can find in the next week or something like that, to kind of get a sense of where they're at. But the other big thing that I would say is don't underestimate how important it is to write like coherent full sentences in your application materials and your inquiries and stuff like that. Like, it doesn't have to be Shakespeare or anything, but having the quickest way for me to not take an application seriously is if someone doesn't even have the time to like uppercase the first letter of a sentence or put periods at the end of the sentence or stuff like that. Like that just screams to me like this person is not serious. They're not ready to be working full time. As they're not ready to jump into this business and have a standard and a certain level of professionalism. So don't, I just really, really recommend to folks don't overlook those sort of simple everyday type of things, because those can really be red flags on your resume and your application otherwise.
Right. Now, finally, when you close your laptop at the end of the day, what exactly are you doing? Or on the weekend? You possibly don't have weekends, do you?
No, not really. I'm always on. For whatever reason, cheap flights actually tend to pop up a little bit less on weekends, so it's a little bit more relaxed. But yeah, that's a blessing and a curse of running your own business is you're never really off.
100%, yeah. But then, what do you do if you're not working? What would you rather be doing? Yeah.
Oh man. Gosh, number of different things. So, I've got a puppy at home, so love playing with her, obviously. Getting out and playing soccer, big thing for me. So I play on an amateur team here in Colorado. And other than that, I'm traveling, unsurprisingly, big thing. Every once or twice a month, like to take trips. My fiance and I, went to, in the last month, been to, Japan, New York City, Belarus, Germany, and some other places. And then otherwise just kind of taking advantage of Colorado. So, when it's summer, getting out and hiking, playing in the river and stuff like that. When it's winter, going skiing down in the mountains. Trying to take advantage of the outdoors here as much as I can.
Right. Have you been to Cape Town before, or in South Africa in general?
Not Cape Town. I've been to Joburg. I've been to Joburg and then drove over to Swaziland and Mozambique from there. I only had about 3 or 4 days in Joburg, so enough to get some good peri-peri chicken, but not nearly enough time as I'd like. So it's definitely on the list to come back to.
Yeah, all right, man. Look for a cheap flight to Cape Town that you definitely enjoy it. It's very good here.
Absolutely. I'll keep my eyes peeled.
Yeah. And then, do you watch movies or listen to music or anything like that?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I mean, constantly have music on in the background, and big fan.
Right. Do you watch? Why I'm asking this is, do you watch a series called Silicon Valley, the HBO?
I've heard of it, but I haven't actually watched it. Would you recommend?
100%. There's a guy who is, I think he probably was obsessed with flights as well. He started a company called Aviator.
Huh.
So yeah, he's kind of like a quirky, crazy guy right there. Huh. Yeah.
All right, I'll add it to my list of shows I should check out.
Definitely. And on your travels, have you couchsurfed before? Used couchsurfing?
I haven't. And actually, I take that back. I did once, but this is about 6 or 7 years ago, when I was backpacking through Europe. I have done plenty of hostel living, plenty of just very much like roach motels and stuff like that. But for the most part these days, getting a little bit older, haven't been doing as much couch surfing, more Airbnb and stuff like that. But yeah, it's something that I think I would like in the right context. I think I'd enjoy getting to do more of.
Right. Cool. So just one more question, Scott, before you leave. For to a 20 someone in their early 20s, what did you say to them?
Oh man, um, you you've got plenty of time. Like I know it can feel like a lot of pressure to find your business. Assuming I'm talking to aspiring entrepreneurs, you feel like a lot of pressure to find your $1 million business idea. Um, don't be too hard on yourself, because it takes a lot of time. You never know where uh, inspiration or luck will pop up. uh, that's A. But B, when you do have ideas, try to figure out ways to test them at a low cost or no cost way. I mean, one of the great things about being an entrepreneur in 2016 is, unlike 20 years ago, you would have had to spend $50,000 like on creating a new business, opening up a store, getting inventory, doing all sorts of different things. Whereas nowadays you can like start a business and test it out for free, like basically do all that for free. Or even like less than $100. Just so don't be afraid to like start really small. Test things out, figure out some way. Like even if it's, I think it's Zappos, the company. I'm pretty sure the way they started out was they created a website that said, we're selling shoes. They didn't actually have any shoes and they didn't actually buy any inventory. So they were, making it very low risk for themselves. But what they would do is anytime they got an order for shoes, they say the new Jordans or something, they would just go down to Reebok, go down to Foot Locker or somewhere like that and buy the shoes themselves and then ship them. And so what they were doing was figuring out, like, I don't know if they made much money on that initially by, buying shoes at retail price and then shipping them to customers. But what it was that they were testing the market and realizing, wow, there are a lot of people that do want to search for and buy shoes online. And so rather than buying, 1,000 pairs of Jordans and then hoping to sell them, they didn't buy any. And just when somebody placed an order, they would go literally buy those shoes and fulfill that order. So I would really highly recommend folks to try to figure out ways that you can test your market and see if there's interest in it in a way that's not gonna, cost you a ton of money or not gonna put yourself at risk in the process.
Right. So, and I hear a lot of people saying they have ideas that they would want to set up an online business. Pretty much some very simple formulas or ideas that would be easier to set up online and just start their business, like retail, for example. But then, they step back because they would say, "Oh, I'm not that technically competent. I'm not tech savvy." Could you just explain what you think would be what are they, from a scale of 1 to 10, like how hard it is to set up a basic website, for example?
Not that hard. I mean, I didn't do most of it, but it's super easy to partner with people, to contract with people, to do any type of tech service that you want. It's 2016. There's so many people that are developers, coders, people who are looking for work that you can hire out to do all these tasks. So anything that doesn't appeal to you, that's not within your wheelhouse, that you think other people could do better, it's super easy just to, find either employees or business partners to handle that stuff instead of trying to take it on yourself. Yeah, it's one of the beauties of trying to start a business in 2016 is you don't have to reinvent the wheel each time. There's so many services out there that you can just take advantage of.
100%, yeah. Especially like website building, there's things now like Squarespace. that are really,
Oh, yeah.
there's WordPress, obviously, and there's Squarespace that someone can use. And if you expand, you can obviously just hire people that are more tech savvy than you yourself, just to handle it.
Absolutely.
And what has been like your revenues on the first year of running, if you don't mind talking about that?
So we're up in the six figures now. We're up to like something like 250,000 subscribers, with about 20,000, like 18 to 20,000 or so are on the premium list. So these are paying subscribers. I don't have the exact numbers up in front of me, but yeah, it's been somewhere in the $300,000, $500,000 range, much more expected than I ever would have expected, even a few months ago. So it's been growing exponentially.
Right. Thanks so much for your time, Scott. Really appreciate it.
No problem. Great chatting with you, Gray.
Yeah, good, man. We'll see you on Reddit probably.
Hey, cool. Thanks a lot, man.
Cheers,
Good talking
man.
with you.
Thanks so much.
All right.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
And right before you leave, remember to subscribe to the Grave podcast or the TGA podcast. It's the same thing. So you can just go on the website right now. If you're on the greyjabesi.com, on the same page that you're listening to this, there is a tab where you just put in your email address and then you'll get each and every episode. The same as the homepage, or you can go to iTunes and just subscribe, or on SoundCloud or on Stitcher Radio. You just find the Grave podcast, and it really helps us so much. And you can leave some comments and reviews and questions, or who do you think we should bring in the most? And stay awesome. I'll see you on the next one. And there is a lot of these episodes on the website. You can just go and listen to some of them. You can actually download each episode if you want and listen to it on your own time, which is how I tend to listen to a lot of podcasts that I listen to. So remember to do that. And again, I'm out.